going on, everybody? Gus here. How you guys doing today? We've looked at a bunch of different mechanical keyboards over time here on the channel, most of them from drop, but we've never actually got our mitts into keyboards that are more enthusiast, more collectible, more like design-ish things. And there are a bunch of different brands out there like Vermillo, Leopold, Ducky even. That's something we're going to try and remedy, but today we're taking one step towards that direction. And we're looking at one such keyboard, that one from Akko, or Akko, AKKO. This is the Akko Tokyo World Tour 60% mechanical keyboard. And unlike a bunch of other mechanical keyboards that have different hidden features, everything that's special about this keyboard is right here on the surface at face value. So let's tackle the obvious first, the actual design and the construction of the board. Everything is made out of plastic, but it's really solid, so no complaints there. The case is rather light, so there's not that much heft to it, despite having an actual metal plate inside that I'm not really sure what kind of metal it is. I wouldn't say it's aluminum because it's a little bit too coarse, but then again, it can maybe be coarse because of the paint that's being used, which matches the colorway of the entire keyboard, obviously. Then there's the PCB, which is simple, 60%, no frills, and actually no real features as well. There's no illumination, there's no hot swap, it's not wireless, but it is at least USB Type-C, and you're probably not going to have issues with aftermarket cables because the connector is pretty flush, and there's nothing obtrusive that would prevent you from using aftermarket cables anyway. But you can customize the board through macros with Akko's own software, at least. And speaking of layout, the keycap set that comes with the Tokyo World Tour is all about the design. And we're going to talk about all that in a second, but there is nothing about secondary functions anywhere. So you kind of really need the manual to understand how to actually use this keyboard. And then you can macro it to your liking and use the extra keycaps that come with, 12 to be precise, to maybe set a couple of different clusters of keys across the keyboard to your liking and to, map them differently from everything else, like a WASD area, for example. Just be mindful that these special keycaps that come with the board are actually all meant to sort of substitute the number row, the topmost row, and that's because of the overall profile of this keycap set and the angle and the overall height of each of the different keycap rows. Now, designed PVT, but not double shot and not shine through because, no illumination on the board, the keycaps don't need to push illumination through them anyway. They're really sturdy and not at all tingy with the sound profile of when you bottom them out. Now, this is not the kind of board that I would be concerned of your keycap set not fitting because, you don't get it for anything else other than the design of its keycap set on its own, but just so that you guys know, these are north-facing switches, so if that could cause compatibility issues with something that you want to add to this keyboard, now you know. And all of these design elements, well, from the Tokyo name, you can kind of grab that they are all derived of Japanese folklore and imagery and inspiration. And these are honestly beautiful. All of them are really well designed, they're very intricate, and there are lots of little details that just pop a little bit of extra color and extra personality into the Tokyo World Tour 60%. This board is definitely a design statement, a piece to be in the middle of your setup, and it really doesn't need anything else to draw attention to it. Now, I mentioned there is no hot swap here, so every single switch is soldered on, and Akko decided to go for the tried and true cherry switches. You can grab blues, browns, and reds. This one is blue, as you guys can hear, and this is how it sounds. Alright, blues don't have a special place in my heart. I'm flat out. I'm just gonna come on and say it, but I do have to concede that the kind of tactile feedback you get from clicky switches is like much stronger than that what you get from any other type of tactile switch out there. It's not just audible. The amount of physical feedback you get from the clickiness is just on another level. Now that said, I did add another keyboard from Akko which uses linear switches just so that you guys can have a parameter of comparison on those sound profiles, but I'd say that it could be drastically improved, or at least much improved, if you were to actually occupy the inside of this case with any sort of dampening material, because there's a lot of empty space in here that on that other board, which is going to have its own review, there's a battery there, so it occupies a little bit of the space already, and this is basically entirely hollow. This is definitely a prime candidate for at least that sort of modding. Lubing the switches would be a little bit more complicated because you would have to desolder stuff or use spray-on lube, which actually means that you're going to have the same sort of situation with the stabilizers. Now that's where things got a little weird / interesting, because the spacebar stabilizer of this keyboard came pre-lubed out of the factory and the other ones didn't. I get that the spacebar is probably the one that's going to rattle the most, but you did that on only one. You should have done it on all of them. And second, maybe use a little bit more or a little bit of a thicker lube as well, because the amount that was used on the spacebar just wasn't enough. So it's still a little bit scratchy and it doesn't do that great of a job. I mean, feels like it could have been much improved with a different amount or a different sort of lube at least. And I'm actually picking on all of those little details because the Tokyo World Tour here costs about $100, so it's definitely not cheap. You can't grab boards for 30, 40 bucks on Amazon that are hot swap or maybe even wireless or maybe even both, depending on how much you spend. Yes, you could argue that you'd rather go for a board that has those features because you can't add those later on, and then buy a keycap set like this to add the, visual element. But usually keycap sets like these are reserved for particular boards, like this one for example. And even if you could grab a board that costs about like 90 bucks, let's say $80 to $90, at least so that you're getting something in the same ballpark in terms of quality of the build and that has all those other features. Add in something like that in terms of a keycap set, it's definitely not going to run you below what, $50 to $60. So the amount of money that you're going to be spending on your keyboard is going to be like way up there in comparison to this one. Again, different target demographics. This is not trying to outdo the features that other keyboards are delivering to you. This is trying to deliver a special design piece that's going to complement the setup that you already have. But still, for $100, I do think that this deserves to come out of the box with some sound dampening material inside, and it also deserves a wireless version. Because come on, when you turn it over, you can even see where the switch to turn it on and off was supposed to be. Why not just add the option? It's an extra thing. Yes, people are going to be paying extra for it. Again, yes, but at least you give people the option to do it. Same thing I'd say for switches. Maybe someone doesn't really want to go cherry and wants something different, and you guys already sell different keyboards with different switches from other brands. So why not add those as options for people to choose from? And something else that I'd also say about options is, in terms of lubing, since the Tokyo World Tour doesn't have hot swap, why not add the option for people to pay you guys to ship this thing with everything lubed out of the factory? As far as I'm aware, nobody does that, but there are a lot of people who are probably going to want to pay for that sort of service because they either don't know how to, don't want to, or can't really tackle soldering and all that kind of stuff, but would rather have the option for having a really silent, already lubed and like customized keyboard on top of the visual aspect. I mean, again, nobody does that. Maybe it's a mute point, maybe it has absolutely no place in the market, but it feels like something that you guys could at least try to. Just throwing an idea out there. But that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, leave any comments or suggestions down below as usual if you're feeling like it. Hope you guys enjoyed it and share this video as well. It really helps us out a lot and I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Gus and I'll catch you guys later.